Well, hi, everybody. It's Kim Winter from Logistics Executive Group again. Thank you for joining us and sharing some of your time with us. It's my pleasure today to be speaking with a long-time associate that I met probably about 20 years ago, a very well-known sportsman and celebrity in the down under land of Australia, who has had a very glittering career, about 12 years or so, as a professional sportsman in Australian rules. Australian rules is the dominant sport in New Zealand, much, much bigger than football, as it's known in the world, or soccer, or rugby league, very strong in Australia as well as other sports. But he's been a successful businessman after leaving his professional career. He then has got into social causes, which I want to talk also about today, of course, and all-round top guy. Welcome, Corey McKernan.
Now, Kim, you will get slaughtered by your homeland. In your opening, you said that Australian rules football was very big in New Zealand. Now, I don't think the All Blacks would really appreciate you saying that Australian rules has taken over New Zealand, but thank you and welcome.
my faux pas. I've just got off a call to New Zealand, so apologies. Of course, you're on the land of Oz.
Yep, sure are.
Good stuff, Corey. And as I mentioned, I bumped into you in the sporting world probably more than 20 years ago now, and it was absolute delight. I met you when you're at the peak of your career, as I recall it. And I'd just like to ask you a little bit about your upbringing and how you ended up playing professional sport, and how you ended up winning a couple of the absolute top accolades. You won 2 Australian Football League premierships, and you were also voted as the top player, the MVP for Australia for a particular year. Tell us about the early days.
There's a little bit to unpack, but my journey was a little bit different to, I think, a lot of people out there that, I played football when I was younger, like probably every kid in Australia, that you've got a football, you go for a kick out the front of the house. And this is the short version. I decided that when I was about 12 or 13 years old that I didn't want to play football anymore, and I love the game of golf. I think the first golf tournament I was ever attracted to was the 1986 US Masters, and seen this blonde guy from Queensland called Greg Norman run around the golf course, and that was it for me for a number of years. So from when I was 12, about 17, I played golf, which, by the way, I'd recommend for a lot of parents out there. I know that we tend to put all our eggs in one basket and think that kids can only play one sport. I'd recommend to a lot of kids out there, you go and play a lot of different sports, because then you find out, where your passions really lay. And I was playing golf for a number of years, and it was only when I got to about 17 years old I was playing school football. The only reason I played school football, by the way, is that I knew I could get the day off school. So, and it just so happened that North Melbourne, the team I ended up playing for, ran the school competition. The coach at that time wanted me to go down, and I didn't want to play football. I just, loved the game of golf, and I was really passionate about my golf. I was 17 years old. I think my handicap was about 3. So I had dreams of going to Augusta, but Dennis Pagan, the coach of the North Melbourne football, or at the under-19s, that he would later become the senior coach, he just said, look, come down and play and see how you go. And then in the end, I only went down to North Melbourne to get him off my back. And I know for a lot of people out there probably won't make a lot of sense, but I went down in my first game. Now, if you usually kick maybe 1 or 2 or 3 goals, it's a good game of footy. If you play up forward, I kicked 11 goals in my first game, and then that was it for golf. And look, I was then on a journey to, as you mentioned, that, stayed at North Melbourne, made my way through the ranks, and was very lucky that we ended up, we had a very fortunate period where we were successful for about 7 or 8 years, where we always finished in the Final 4. So we're always there or thereabouts, and we're fortunate enough in 1996, which is a bit scary, Kim, that 1996, that was 25 years ago, that we won the AFL Premiership, and I won the AFL MVP that year.
I remember it well. It must have been the year that I met you. You're you're at the peak of your power as an absolute superstar, and it was a great deal of fun hanging out with you guys, you and your team in those days. It's another long story how that all happened, but yeah, look, and you evolved. I want to talk to you about that career and when you're 12 years professional sport in Australia. And for anybody who hasn't seen Australian rules, get on Be In Sport or wherever and have a look. It is one of the most athletic sports you'll see anywhere in the world. And there's a lot of contact, a lot of high drama. So by all means, have a look. You left and you developed into a range of entrepreneurial businesses. I recall you ran a fantastic pub in, I guess it was North Melbourne. I can't recall, but I was certainly a guest there on a number of occasions. And you were hands-on. You started from scratch. You also ran a touring company to follow your dream, to taking golfers to, as I recall, you invited me once to go to Augusta. I couldn't make it at the time, but you used to take tours overseas. How did that play out?
Yeah, it was, look, I wanted to do something after I finished playing footy. And the best analogy I can give, I remember reading something that I heard a story that made a lot of sense, and it probably makes sense for a lot of athletes and probably even high performers out there. That I remember hearing a story once saying that when NASA took astronauts to the moon, what they tried to do after they'd been to the moon is they tried to give them a mission that was every bit as good as going to the moon. Now, it made a lot of sense to me as playing sport, because when you play sport, like even for me, for example, you've always got a name you've always got a goal that you're always chasing. So whether it was your first game, you wanted to play your 50th game, you want to play your 100th game, you want to kick goals, like there's all this up and up and up. And it's pretty easy to see why there's so many stories over the journey with athletes. And I always say, like, could be high performers in there, like whether you're CEOs and things like that. You've always got these challenges on the up and up and up. But unless you've got something every bit as good, or something similar, that challenge and that mindset of when you finish, leave that forum, where you can see how a lot of people get themselves into trouble. And I'm not going to sit here and say at different times have I lost my way and whatever, because I definitely did. But I know that I was very conscious about it when I first finished playing football, that I did have something that I was super passionate about. And in that case, it was running a pub in North Melbourne that we took from, wasn't doing a lot of money, but I still remember my mindset, and it's amazing how that carried me through in running that pub, where I said, right, I wanted it to be the best multi-purpose venue in Melbourne. Now, were we going to achieve that? Probably not. But because you had that mindset, it was something that just drove you constantly that, hey, we're always going to try and reach for that aim. So, yeah, it was, I know it's a long-winded answer, but it was really just when we finished playing the game, it's like, how can I take some of those lessons? And there are a vast number of lessons between sports and business out there, but I think the ones that I always see that come home to roost are about your structure, your routine, and your goals. Like, they're the three pillars you'd probably say that you can easily transform them from a sporting environment across to the business sense. It's no different to you, Kim. You probably know your own routine about what you need to do from a day-to-day and your week-to-week. And you find when you stray from that, it's easy to see how you can sometimes get yourself into strife.
Got some bad news for you, Corey. My life's chaos, and I stray every day. So the world of executive recruitment and global consulting and the supply chain is about as dynamic and varied as it gets. But as I said on a podcast recently, it's the variety and the excitement and the challenging adventure that makes it. You mentioned about this whole issue of whether it's business or whether it's sport. Professional people or high performance people in any field ultimately come across the challenge of either a dip or in our world, in terms of executive search and in consulting to a certain degree, with high performance individuals in the supply chain falling off the cliff. I mean, COVID was an awesome and awful example in many cases, and still is for many, where their career is interrupted. And that's just in the business career, and aligned again back to your sporting analogy. And we see people really struggle, and we've had a number of podcasts, so I think you're aware of, in regards to mental health and one thing and another. You took a decision after you tested yourself and chanced your arm in entrepreneurial businesses, which I congratulate you on. Then you took a turn into the direction of social cause and to working with people who were disrupted, who had, some of whom had fallen off the cliff, were struggling, whether it be in business or in particular in your circle, professional sportsmen. Talk to us a little bit about what you started, because you started an organisation called Walk With Me, and you interviewed me on that about a year ago or so, which I appreciate. Tell us about that move, what drove you towards that, and what it's all about.
Well, it's probably been starting a fair way before that. I know that Walk With Me started, at the start of the pandemic, but I'll just go back a step. It was probably also me. I think I said off air, one of the, I think for me, everyone talks about a bit of a lightning bolt type moment or an epiphany or whatever you want to call it. But I remember when I watched the Simon Sinek talk about finding your why, and it's obviously one of the most watched TED Talks of all time, but it made a lot of sense to me in terms of, it gave me some guidance about what I was going to do moving forward, but it also made me understand about some great things I've achieved in terms of having that powerful why. And I know, like, for example, for the viewers out there, that when I had my most successful year in football, it also, that particular year, I wanted to win a premiership medallion for my teammates that have been playing for a long, long period of time. So it's amazing when you've got a cause that's bigger than yourself, how much you can do personally. Like it's not then focusing so much on what you can get out of it. It's what you can then give back to others. And that then carried through, as I just mentioned before. It probably also carried through then at the start of the pandemic last year. I saw a headline in the Australian newspaper that the suicide toll was going to outstrip the coronavirus toll. And for anyone out there, if you're struggling or if you hear anything from what we're saying, make sure there's lots of help out there. So I'll just get that out there whenever I sort of mention anything like that. Sure. And saw the headline in the Australian newspaper, and I thought, well, what can I actually do? You know what I mean? Like, I get angry at seeing headlines like that. And then I came up with the idea, obviously, in today's world, we're doing things like now, Kim, where you've got Zoom and you've got that connectivity from that point of view. And then I thought, well, hang on, why can't we just I'll take people for a walk and go and talk to them on Zoom. So that's how it all started. Like, we just, you know what I mean? I just threw it out there. And look, during the pandemic, I've moved to Queensland, and Queensland in Australia is probably a lot less affected by, you know what I mean, than a place like Melbourne, where I'm from. But to know that you were helping so many people out during the pandemic and just going for a walk at that stage, I think from maybe April through to December last year, we were doing those walks 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m. And for everyone out there, I know Kim's in Dubai at the moment. It's nice and warm, but in June, July in Melbourne, it gets pretty cold and it gets pretty wet. And look, it was, I don't know, at least I actually felt like I was doing something to help people out going through a really, really tough time, because the lockdowns, whether you're a plumber, whether you're a CEO, the biggest thing it messed with everyone, I think, was the structure and the routine. Yeah. And it really made people think about, well, once that's taken away, how am I going to operate? And that's all we tried to do by at least having some on the walks. All that we try and do, we just try and get people talking about ideas. And the thing that probably all the people that come on the walk, they hear me say ad nauseum, it's, well, what are the tools in their kit bag that we can add that it makes sure that they can thrive in any environment? And, I mean, it becomes, some days they might learn something that's utterly useful, but then other days they can pick stuff up they can use in their own lives.
Yeah, I think, Corey, one of the value propositions that you bring with Walk For Me, and we'll, by the time people are watching this, we'll certainly have a link back to Walk For Me so people can reach out to you, is that you've taken some pretty not everybody, but there's a lot of high-profile people from the sporting sector especially, which tends to be a high celebrity status in Australia. But let's face it, people get attracted to celebrity. And there's some really tough stories that a lot of the people that you've seemed to manage to open people up like a can of worms, my friend. I don't know how you do it, but I think it's just that laconic, down-to-earth, home style that you have. And you certainly did that with me. And I remember to do it live for your time frame, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was walking out in the middle of the desert. And you certainly managed to dig deep into me, to some of my darkest times. Anybody who knows me knows I've escaped death on about a dozen occasions, so I'm very fortunate and a happy man to live every day of the week and stay 6 feet above the ground. But and amongst those people that you've been talking to, there have been some massive connections and lessons, and I know you've had a very big fellowship. So well done on that. And I think there is such a big sporting culture in Australia. And there's it's one of those societies where achievement and rising to the challenge is a big thing. Just coming off their peak, coming on the downside, what to do next, how you achieve and set those goals. You've been great in helping people understand and where to go to get help to actually find goals, as simple as they might be, to keep themselves motivated, keep themselves happy, and ensure that they don't get depressed about things, and especially in times like COVID. You've developed, a real fellowship around this, and I'm interested to know where you want to take Walk For Me, because I know it's an evolving animal, if you like. And what's your plans over the next year or two for that venture and any other ventures that you are involved in? I know there are a number.
Oh, look, I think for mine at the moment, like you said, we started off as just doing a Zoom walk 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and now it's evolving into, if that's also that's one pillar what we do, where, we still keep doing that at 7 a.m. Melbourne time every week via Zoom. So if anyone wants to join in, you'll be able to get the links. But it's also, it's probably 3 pillars. That's one pillar. The second pillar, as you mentioned, doing the interviews with some of the sports stars, celebrities, and people in business and entertainment. All I try and do, and it's the same as when we do the walks, I try not to deep dive into too much what they've actually been through. We can skirt around the edges, but I love hearing, well, yes, they acknowledge it, but I love to hear what they've actually done. And that's where we pulled out a lot of the gems in what we're doing. Because we're just really conscious that you want to make sure that when they listen to what we're doing or come for a walk, it's uplifting. That's what we want to try and do. We're trying to bring them up, not sort of with the greatest respect. We're not trying to pull them down. And then the third pillar, which we'll do some live events here in Australia as well. So I don't know where it goes, mate. I'm not too sure, but it's there's some exciting stuff that we're going to do. I am pretty lucky that I can get to learn. You're learning from, I tell you, I learn from a lot of celebrities, but it's also you learn from a lot of the people that come on the Zoom walk. So for something that I started is just doing to help people out, well, it's probably helped out yours truly as well.
Yeah, no, totally. And I couldn't agree more. I'm very fortunate to be involved in a company which started 22 years ago, and whether by good luck or by good judgment, a bit of both probably, I've managed to surround myself with people that have that ethos. I must say the sporting code, their code of ethics, that oneness, that ability to be thinking about others, to act as a team, to share the successes and the failures. In fact, it's an absolute must for recruitment for us when we're recruiting internally anywhere across our global network of offices. That people have played sport and that they understand it's about giving and it's about passing the ball to somebody else to get the goal necessarily than ourselves. So I think there's some great life lessons there. You also mentioned before about the power and the energy of doing things for other people. Again, I've been fortunate to be surrounded by people in the organisation that we've built who are all giving, who are all about doing stuff for other people. And in fact, our consulting business and our executive search business is all predicated on helping people out, doing the right thing, trying to give people information, data, knowledge, insights about things they don't know about so we can help them out. And that tends to come back on a reciprocal, circular basis and a circular economy. Corey, you've hired a lot of people. As we wrap up, you've hired a lot of people. You've engaged with a lot of people over the years. Always wrap up with our guests for a couple of questions. One of them is, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a professional sportsman, you've engaged with a lot of people in your time, and no doubt you'll continue to do so. But when you're bringing people into an organisation or hiring them in a business or whatever else, what are the couple of things that you look for in amongst people as they're coming in? What characteristics are of interest to you?
I suppose, Kim, you're never really going to have a crystal ball as to what it's actually really going to turn out like. But I don't know. I think my thinking's changed a little bit, even with creating like Walk With Me and the things that you're trying to do with it. That, yeah, how do you really get out? I don't know whether you can hear that. My kids are going crazy in the background. No, but like I think I know I'm putting a lot of faith in it, but yeah, that the Simon Sinek talk about you finding your why, and if you can get people that are buying into your organisation and believe in the why of your business, well, they're not necessarily going to care about the pay packet. How you then find that, I've got no idea how you find it. That's why they need people like you, Kim. But look, that's really your dream result, isn't it? That someone comes into your organisation, they believe in the vision of where you want to take it. They love the why of what it stands for. They love the values and everything like that. That I always likened it, even when I finished playing football, my advice to a lot of sportsmen would be go and find a job that even if you didn't get paid any money, that's what you really got to try and find. And I know a lot of athletes and people with egos wouldn't go and do that, but it's funny that if you can find something that you dearly love, well, in the end, the money will come for it. And that's where Walk With Me, even with what I'm doing with this, that'll eventually happen. I think if you got the message and you got a powerful why and what you're doing it, all the rest will come later.
Yeah, you're right. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek's as well, and I hear what you're saying, and I'm glad you could share that with our audience. Hey, Corey McKernan, sports legend, entrepreneurial businessman, sports freak, actually. I've known you well enough to know you are a sports freak, but a damn good one at that. All-round good bloke, a father. Happy Father's Day for the other day. Really appreciate you sharing some time with us, Causa. And I know that many of the Australians in particular will be great to see your face. You're well respected in the community. You're well loved. And for what you're doing, I take my hat off to you, and you have our full support. So thank you again to our audience, to the first responders, to the people in the medical field and the logistics field, keeping us safe in these trepidatious times. All respect to you. We take our hats off to you for keeping us safe, and we look forward to catching up with you again. Corey, well done. Thanks so much, and I look forward to catching up with you again.
Will do, and hopefully it's not too long where I'm actually sitting there right in front of you in Dubai. Hopefully that's not too far away.
Love to do that. Thanks, Causa. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, mate.